All right, cyber traders, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk Workshop. Should be good to go across all ends here inside our live trading room, definitely, and across social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc. For anyone new that's joining us here, my name is Josh Levitan. I'm the senior instructor here with Fausto at Cyber Trading University. So first and foremost, welcome aboard to any of our new trial members joining us here. We got Robert, we got Joshua before, Udaj. Great to see all of us here. So for any of our trial members here, hey, we always say that it's best for you to kind of just take a step back and not really look to trade just yet, regardless of experience, right? You know, you might have 20, 25 years of market experience before coming to, little cyber trading university. So what we mean by that is, well, hey, for anyone that has that experience, do you have that much experience with day trading, with following level 3, with following level 4, as we'll look to show and demonstrate here? If the answer is yes, then certainly we'd say welcome aboard, and you're probably a step or two ahead. But otherwise, though, most that join us do not have that day-to-day experience with following order flow level 3 and level 4. So that's where we encourage you to at least be in the passenger seat, to take a step back. The market's going nowhere. I mean, in terms of closing permanently, of course. I do think we're going to see a strong move up within the market, throughout the rest of this year into early next. And that's been the MO basically here in Traders Talk for a little while now. So with that said, we're going to go over a bunch of different trades from today, not just the stocks that were on our watch list, like, quadruple C, CCCC and ADTX and, JTAI, but we're going to go over some larger cap stocks that have been influenced by this move up within the market. So really quick, actually, little housekeeping note. Actually, may not see my ugly mug on social media right now. I normally have my home office set up here. Just got back from New York visiting my family and of course, some friends there too, just over the holiday season here. I do celebrate Hanukkah. So great to be back. It was great to be back with family, but now I'm back in Florida. I'm not fully set up yet. My home office is a mess. I scratched my cornea last night. How about that in my eye? So running off no real vision, actually. I can't even see. I don't have my contacts in. Why is that important? Because, well, hey, I'm a trader too, and if I'm going to look to risk my own money, I'm going to make sure I'm very confident with doing so. And I'll tell you what, if I could barely see, I'm probably not going to be able to trade too much, right? I'm not going to feel too confident. I'm going to need to keep my face glued to the screen, which I don't want to do. It hurts my eyes. So that's where I need to be ultra confident with the stock I'm watching, with the levels I'm looking at. Well, there was a stock that I took the time to call out, jump in on, and it's been a great trade since. We'll go to that one in just a little bit, though. I do want to talk about the stock that a lot of us wrote back to me this morning, said that they were following, and that was the one on our list here, one of the ones at least. CCCC. So pulling back down now as I squint close to my screen here, C4 Therapeutics. That actually sounds a lot better. I like that name, C4. Okay, so C4, that actually rolls off the tongue a lot better. Hey, really quick, folks, in pre-market, we know this stock is up percentage-wise coming off of some sort of good news. Well, again, we can't just really buy the news because look at this stock since, end of 21, really. So even if this company did come out with good news over the last year, it hasn't really reacted too well off of it, right? It's only made lower highs and pulled back lower over time. But hey, you know what? With that said, for as much as the stock does drop from that point, from like $50 all the way down to sub 5, if we have good activity on a given morning in pre-market, which is of course here, then perhaps we could see a move up, right? But either way, this trend leading into the market open is not necessarily upward from 8 to 9:30, from 8:30 to 9:30. I can't really say confidently up. It's making higher lows here maybe, but it's not breaking a higher high. So that leads me to tell you that I would not be too jumpy to take this trade right out the gate. Even after 935, let's have it prove itself to us by making that pop, by making that higher high. And then not only that, hey, again, for even trial members here, you could certainly answer this. This is just basic charting 101. When a stock does break resistance and it runs off of it, Again, we go through this each and every week here. What do we expect resistance to get flipped into? Resistance becomes support, right? And a few of us answering on the stream right now on social media, even. So, goes to show that as long as you have that, you know, in the back of your head, as long as you're hyper focused on the strategy, not as much the, quick moves that the stock is making minute by minute, or as I kind of say, looking at all of the fast numbers on the screen, the bright colors, that there's a lot to kind of digest, right? So you can get a little caught up, you can get a little emotional with knowing when is the right time to jump in. Well, hey, if we have our levels set on a trade like this prior to the market opening up, it's going to give us a lot better of an opportunity to take that trade, to anticipate resistance becoming support, or so forth, or so forth. So give me a quick sec. I actually am going to bring up Bookmap here in just a bit. But you know what? Before I even do that really quick, actually, much like I asked with basic charting 101, resistance becoming support, where are we most likely to find the iceberg orders out there for a trade? What common set of price levels? The stock popped this morning, but you know what? Hey, before we even dig into Bookmap level 4, where are we most likely to find the icebergs? Because those are the first lines I draw. Trying to do this without looking at my screen here too closely. So if I mess up, let me know. All right, 50-cent levels and whole numbers, right? So if it drops really far down, then perhaps a price like 150 could be good support here at the open. Perhaps if it could blast over 2, that could be your larger resistance that could get flipped into support over time. 250, and so on and so forth from there, right? That's the first thing you should do on every single trade. The more expensive the stock gets, then you're not using 50-cent marks, you're using dollar, you know, levels there. But, $1, $2 stock, you're going 50-cent prices there pretty much right away. All right, really quick, gotta try and get this here correct. Oh man. It's pretty funny from my side. I can only see blurred colors right now, actually, from a distance. So, folks, let me know here. What price levels do you see as potentially big iceberg levels? Kind of looking at the orange or red lines that are stretching across the page. If there are any, let me know. If you see any darker orange or red lines going across the page, then let me know what price you see them at. Mark and Grant both saying 210. And then Lee and Sam saying 168 roughly, Ravina as well. Yeah, a lot of us are pretty much head on with that, right? Even though this order disappears, it goes from red to blue again. Uh-oh. Well, it was out there for a period of time. It was out there from 8:38 in the morning to 9:09, like 30 minutes in time. To me, I respect that. That's a lengthy amount of time there, at least for pre-market. So you still want to recognize 210 as a potential iceberg level. Now, definitely as an iceberg level, because you could see this orange doesn't turn to blue. It still is out there leading into the open, but that's right at 166 to be exact. So we're all correct with that answer, like 167-ish right there. You look close, 166. Okay. Now, outside of that, I don't really see much on the CVP column or the Delta column that is too attractive to me. Really, otherwise, we'll look at the opening bell print in just a moment, right? That's pretty much it. We'll see what happens right at 9:30 when the market opens up. We'll see what the opening bell print was, that big dot that we have popping up now on Bookmap here. That was at 182. Okay, about 68,000 shares. 68,477 shares. And hey, you know what? I like to do this at times. I'm going to take a small amount of time here to go into the old tape, right? Just time and sales. And if you just see right at 9:30 at the market open, you'll see a much larger transaction pop up. I mean, you'll certainly find it. It's the one that is basically sticking out like a big green thumb. So right here at 9:30, let's take a look. Right there. 68,400 shares. It is filled exactly at 182. So that's just the last piece of the puzzle as far as us plotting these lines. We're not trading the first 5 minutes anyway. You look at the cyber clock, first 5 minutes, you can't trade. So we're not just sitting there twiddling our thumbs. We're watching the chart. We're looking at trends. We're looking at new iceberg levels that may pop up, but we're also looking at this dot, this opening bell print, right? So, hey, at least comparing that opening bell print to some of the icebergs we had here, like at 166. Well, again, all of us wrote that this was an iceberg level. It's about 40,000 shares on the buy side. Okay, well, we all wrote that that was a big level, 40,000 shares. What's bigger, 40,000 or 68,000? We all know the answer to that question. So that's where I just emphasize the opening bell print as such a key level to work off of on the day. So, hey, you know what? We already have the picture already painted here, but I just want to plot a couple more lines if you don't mind, like the 166. Well, right at 9:30, it drops a little bit at first, but it doesn't drop that low. So, as much as you still need to plot that line, it didn't get tested. It wasn't a relevant level here today in hindsight. That's all right. Well, let's move this line up to 182. And here, I think, my friends, you can kind of see what happened after the fact. But, oh, actually, pardon me, probably the best question of them all. What color is this? This dot, this big dot at 182. What color is it? And what do we nickname that, green, as we now answer? Margaret and Grant answering green. What do we nickname the green? Buying. Okay. Well, if there's so much buying at that price and it pops off that price when the market opens up, then the hope would be, at least, the hope would be for that to become support. And Sam, really quickly, that it's filled on the ask. Green means it's filled on the ask side of the order book. Really quick again, but we nickname that, at least on time and sales, buying. So that's where you say, hey, once it busts over this price, the hope is to see resistance get flipped into support. You have a nasty shake here. So actually, it does go under and over, but it's kind of a nasty shake. Nasty little shake in hindsight, right? So probably stopping some people out. Well, this is a much prettier example of that under and over, under and over. And from there, hey, I'm not even going to ask you this one, Roseanne and Sam and Grant, all of us here in the chat, because I ask it enough and I know you know this answer. But when a stock breaks through a big level, we're getting a big move shortly after, right? So with that, we end up getting that big move, right, Chuck? So there we end up seeing it make the push up towards 210. Hey, over time it chips around $2 here, doesn't it? Was 210 the stronger level in hindsight? Looks like it, at least here across the mid morning, right? So why is that important? Well, we actually had that answer earlier in pre-market, right? Actually, we assumed 2 to be the larger level. We do. That's the first thing I plotted. But when there's 10,000 shares at $2 and 161,000 shares at 210, you tell me, what's the larger level, right? I mean, this is enormous. This is much larger than the opening print. You always hear me emphasize the opening print as a big level. Okay, well, this was actually much larger. So it goes to show that it was the more impactful level today. It moved up there. The first test is the best test where we'd expect to see it hold. So right here, false breakout, no surprise on that. Came back down. Now over time, it chips away at it, and the more it nips and gnaws at that price in a shorter time frame, you have a very strong pop up to it again here. But finally, the more times it nips and gnaws at it, like we go over, you get that better reactionary move, right? So have a nice pop. Now, of course, this is where we could at least say, hey, shouldn't this resistance at 210 become support at 210? Well, let's take a look to see what happened on Bookmap, because clearly on this chart, it didn't. It started to maybe a slight little under and over, but clearly you're not getting that reaction up, right? Once it goes under and over here, you would want the move back up rather fast. Or at worst, I guess, for this 210 to become very like super clean support. You could just tell on this next bar. I could tell very blurry from my scratched cornea. Yeah, you could tell that this kind of just drops a little bit lower, and you know right there, it's like, all right. Now, there was a larger shake that happened before that, and that kind of is your red flag prior to 210 failing to hold as support. Like, what happened here? Out of nowhere, you have a big pop up. Doesn't even seem like much liquidity got filled on the way up here. Now, here's the thing. This is where we could at least dig into the green and say, hey, if there's so much green here at from Bookmap from at like 225, pops. All right, well, this should be blasting new highs then. This should be on the way up towards, wherever the next resistance could be at maybe 3. It pulls right back down, and right there that's a red flag. I mean, A, that's a false breakout just to begin. So maybe a false breakout could be worth like, 10-cent drop off and that's it. Maybe 5-cent drop off and it goes back up. When it makes the pop up first and then the smash back down, that is a big red flag. It's easy to say in hindsight now, but folks, you stick with us here inside our live trading room each and every week. This is basically a pattern we see all the time on all these like stupid pop and drop stocks. I say stupid because we've never really traded this stock before. We don't know the history of this company and, we don't have any allegiance to it. So, let's say like an Uber or AMD, at least we're more familiar with. If there is one thing we're familiar with on this stock is that, yeah, it's made some pop and drops in the past, hasn't it? So history could definitely repeat itself in that regard, right? We got a few of us joining us on YouTube right now. All right. So, with that said, I can give you the greatest hits here, the Josh Levitan catchphrase greatest hits list here, as far as what I say each and every week. What happens when the fuel runs out of the car? What happens when when the foot's taken off the gas pedal? The stock doesn't just stall out. It doesn't just go sideways forever. It's gonna go in reverse for you, go 60, 70 miles per hour the other way, right? So that's basically what you're getting right now. If you have any other questions on this trade, just for all of our students here, like Roseanne or Kathleen, Sam, John, Michael, Robert, let me know right now in the chat. But I do want to go over a couple more stocks that we, at least called out from earlier today. Obviously, go over email questions that came in too. Robert, Paulo, Linda, Andy, Lee. I got a few of us that wrote me some good questions. All right, let's go to Uber here really fast because Uber was not on our watch list. This was a stock that we called out after the market opened up. I was playing around with some scans while I was in New York. Again, like I wasn't even aggressive with trading in New York. You probably heard me say I was only working off one screen the whole time. So even there, like I'm not hunting for too many trades. I missed out on a lot of stuff. But with that said, I'm playing around on some scans, and we all know how strong Uber's been anyway. Like generally, one look at the chart, this thing's been a rocket ship. But over the last 5 days, it really has been one of the strongest stocks that have been trading some good volume. Like this, AMD, actually, before today, stock S has been on that scan there too, and that thing has also been on a tear. But I'm a lot more familiar with Uber. I got a scratched cornea. My home office is a damn mess. I'm not trying to trade too much even today with my return back to my Florida, apartment, my normal home office scheme. At least I'm on 3 monitors now, but I could barely see. At least Uber, I'm a little bit more familiar with. I like Uber. My friend Bill Ireland, one of our students in the trading room, big fan of Uber for a long time. He's been killing it there. But we've been talking together and we know it's close to all-time highs, Bill and myself. And, we've been calling it out really for a little while. But today, I put more focus on it myself. This was like really the one stock today I personally decided to put some focus on today. That means AMD. I missed this damn rocket ship today. This was one of the only ones I was more focused on last week. So thankfully, last week was kind to me in AMD there. But at least otherwise, I missed out on this morning. I was more buckled in on Uber. I wish I could say I was more focused on AMD given the 2 moves, but Uber still made a nice pop, right? And still made money on Uber. It was a nice trade. But how and why, right? That's what we'll talk about. Actually, this one we'll go really quickly into because it's a quick story. But if you happen to see here, just even from the daily chart, Notice the close price from yesterday, the closing price from yesterday, the data box that's popping up there. You see those green numbers. You got open, high, low, close. So close 62.46, right? 62.46. Now, we'll show you that on Bookmap here, right here. Just the dot, not the line as much, but just to say, at 62.46, it was nearly 2 million shares that were filled. All right, so let me ask my guy Bill here. Bill, if you're tuning in right now, is that a lot of shares for Uber? And Robert asking, they are joining the S&P 500. They are. That report came out, I think last week, the week before. I think it was last week, right? Had a good pop, and that's what pushed them pretty close to all-time highs. But hey, 2 million, I'd say, is a lot of shares for any stock, especially something more expensive like $62. So, hey, green, we take that as buying, right? We nicknamed that initially as buying. Okay, so that was really like one of the only levels that I was focused on throughout the morning. And the more that it was nipping at that price, it was really here I was saying, okay, there's pretty good opportunity for Uber to try and make a new move up. It didn't happen right away. It ended up breaking over that price. It just was chipping around there for a little bit. I was doing option calls on Uber. So if I was trading the stock, to be transparent with you, I don't know if I'd be getting stopped out or not. I mean, it didn't really break lower, but it dropped off like 15 cents from 62.50, basically 62.46, that price. Um, the purpose of this example is to show, well, hey, it took a few attempts, but it broke off 62.50 and made at least a pretty decent move up to the next resistance. Made a 50-cent move up. So you still at least want to hang on to this trade. If it's making higher lows, it's moving up. I'm not trying to take a small profit because I dealt with the shakes. Hey, let's follow what we always say here. When a stock breaks through a big level, we should be getting that big move. So if you're still in the trade at least, and it's not breaking lower at least, and you're stomaching the shakes, it's a pain in the ass. It really is. But it's starting to move up again. This is not a big move, right? So there's a quite blunt phrase. It's not a Josh catchphrase, mind you. I'm a lot more clean than that. But, it's basically to say bleep or get off the pot, right? That's kind of the catchphrase there. That's kind of the phrase there, basically, right? Let's see this make a more decisive move off 62.50, 62.46, where we had that alleged buying. Robert asking, what is that line, the green line? I don't see green, I see yellow, but that actually I'll just delete. It was more just the closing bell print, this green dot from yesterday. That's what I was focused on. But hey, this stock I was focused on at 8:30 in the morning, at 9 in the morning, right? This was not just, a stock ABC that popped up on my radar midway through the day. Those types of stocks, I have a lot harder of a time to feel confident within taking an entry because I don't have these levels prepped up in advance, right? If you have the answers to the test before the test is given out, don't you think you get a better score, that you'd score higher? So that's why we take a lot of time in pre-market from 8:30 to 9:30, the hour before the open. You got to make sure that you're prepped up, at least for the stocks or stock that you're, really harping on. So again, I can't stress enough myself today. Hopefully my eye gets better tomorrow. Pop my contacts in. I could barely see right now. So I'd probably chart a couple different trades personally. I normally do 2 or 3. Today, I really just said Uber looks strong. If we can get a bounce with the market off the CPI report, perhaps that could be a good trade. I wish I said that about AMD because that made the better move. But point being is that this made the move I was looking for it to make off of yesterday's closing price. And one more time for me, folks, in the chat board right now, one more time for me. When a stock breaks above resistance and it moves off of it, we'd like to think that resistance should become what? Robert joking here. He says, hey, some of us have color/eye issues too. Yeah, actually, my dad is mostly colorblind, so I'm hoping I don't catch that over time. But yeah, resistance should become support, right? right? On the freaking nose. On the nose. This hit 62.46. It's not magic, folks. It is big money. And trust me, I am not the brightest bulb of this bunch. I am not the sharpest tool in this shed. I swear to you. I'm telling you right now, probably on the lower end of that. So it's to say that as long as we have these levels prepped up, it sure gives you a good opportunity to at least focus on the basic principles. You can't reinvent the wheel with trading. So even Bookmap is not reinventing strategy. Maybe it's allowing us to remember where certain levels are, so it gives us a good edge. But it's not revolutionizing, or it's not a completely different strategy from what we've always been preaching, right? Resistance becomes support, support becomes resistance. Now, hey, the more this pushes up, I'd like to think eventually this can make a push to the next resistance level, which was actually yesterday's high. I think 63 was actually just the clean high of the day from yesterday, 62.99. So, the more times it nips and gnaws at this resistance, we should be expecting a more decisive move, right? I mean, hey, 50 cents of a pullback from the first test here, that's pretty decisive, don't get me wrong. But I would like to think the more it keeps going at this price on the way up, then we should be getting that higher high, right? And, we're actually really close to all-time highs on Uber, right, Bill? I got to go back to my weekly chart here actually to show that. There we go. 64.05, all-time high back from Feb of 21. We're right there. So this could be a really good swing. Well, it has been a great swing trade, obviously, but will only continue to be a good swing trade as it's breaking all-time highs, especially with the market looking really strong over the last month. We got the Fed meeting tomorrow. I think a lot of us are expecting the same thing out of the Fed tomorrow, but we're not always expecting a certain reaction, right? So it's more of a matter of following said reaction tomorrow afternoon, but should we get another pop, that's definitely going to take Uber into new territory, I feel, over time. All right, really quick, folks. Just got to go through the chat board, making sure I'm not forgetting any questions. I am not. All right. Now, hey, I always like to say, feel free to email us ahead of time, just any trades from your journal that you'd want us to go over, or any other questions entirely. Send it right over to my email address, josh@c2trading.com. Any one of us joining on social media today, feel free to join us inside our live trading room. Actually, scan that QR code on the top left of your screen right there. But, for our students that emailed me, actually, again, Josh@C2 Trading, we have Linda, Paulo, Robert, Andy. We got a few more, perhaps, I think, on top. I got to dig through my inbox here. So let me go through a few of these actually. All right. So let's take a quick look. Sometimes you get some responses to an email we send out, and the response is, nope, I don't have any questions right now. I'll see you there, though. So I think I'm getting that from a couple of us right now to begin in email. So at least one thought from a student or from a trial member here, I believe. I think they're not a student just yet, just a trial member. That's all right. But we want to make sure that you go through our full curriculum before you really begin to start trading larger sizes, or at least 500, 1,000 shares, whatever it may be. Even if you have a large account size, if you haven't produced well with that account, that doesn't mean you're going to produce good results with us right away. You got to make sure you have this strategy kind of soaked in. So I got a question just from one trial member, unnamed, and we'll just say, hey, I kind of get frustrated since I'm new at this kind of trading. It seems like I only find stuff after it's made a big move. So the one thing I just want to comment on there, if I can, it's just, that wasn't a question as much, just kind of a sentiment. And what I could respond to in that sentiment from my trial member that emailed me is that a large part of my confidence comes from preparation. We just went over it, right? Hey, let's say if I had two eyes today and not one eye, and let's say if I'm on my normal system here. Well, if I'm feeling sick, if I wake up late, if I'm not there to prep up ahead of time, then for those stocks that I'm interested in, I'm not going to feel as confident to jump in. And then I'm going to feel more overwhelmed because I know I'm late to the party. And then I'm not going to scan as well. So there's a process behind making sure that we're behind the ball on at least most of these trades. One thing that we have to accept, and I just say this to everyone, is that we're not going to be there to trade every stock, folks. There's like, thousands of publicly listed stocks that will look to call out perhaps over time. We're not going to be able to be on the ball from low to high on every single one, right? Just, we always have to accept that regardless. That's where AMD, personally, me, I know a bunch of us did well on AMD today. I did well on AMD last week, but today, hey, I missed out on this one. Hey, CCCC, I missed out on this one. But as long as you're able to be more prepped up beforehand, hey, again, I'm working with like 80% of our students, of course, just in our room between the one-on-one coaching sessions. If you're a long-time student, it comes with your course packages. You get a boatload of them. As a new student, you get a few. But either way, I'm working with the majority of our students that are in this class right now, this workshop. And I have one in particular. He's going to crack up right now. Unnamed, won't mention name. Just mentioned that, I went over this with them on a coaching call last week as far as the preparation behind it. And, they definitely are very firm with understanding what we're preaching in our classes. And I know it from dialogue. We have great conversations about opening bell prints and halts and, levels. And I know they have good levels. But the one thing I know they're lacking, or they have been, is the preparation behind it. And that's what's going to make you a little late to the party, or going to make you a little more frustrated thinking that you're late to the party. Maybe you're not late to the party. Maybe even with the stock moving up, there could be damn good opportunity to jump into the trade as long as you have your levels set. So even if you didn't take it from the first good level, there could always be more opportunity. You may be late to the party, but you're always able to grab a good piece of the pie. There's a difference between that and just outright impulsive chasing, correct? So, as long as we're methodical with getting in and we're taking it really from a clean level and we're getting in just a few pennies above it, then hey, let's look for a big move shortly after, right? Sam says that's why Rich starts with the top stocks on the winners list because they're likeliest to move up. Absolutely, Sam. Josh does that too. So, yes, we always start from the top here at CTU, and those are the most active, but those aren't always like the best ones, right? Because, Sam, we need to incorporate spread pretty much more than the top of the winners list, right? That actually is even more of a concern. But just to kind of answer that kind of sentiment from my trial member joining us here, they were frustrated since they were kind of new at trading. The best thing to do is focus on the prep part because it's a marathon, not a sprint. Unless if you have the IRS or the MOB knocking on your door trying to squeeze some money out of you, I think that we all have a little time to try and get this right. So that's where, as long as you're studying after the fact and applying what we're preaching, to studying more than anything, you're going to become more reactant when you're actively trading. Screen time is as important as studying, but otherwise, as long as we have these levels figured out, then we're going to be able to do well over time. That's it. All right. From Wayne, he says, as you focus on a few prospects, near miss that gets away from you simply proves you were looking in the right place. Keep the faith and continue. Yeah, that too. That's one way to think about it, Wayne, right? Um, I just mentioned just generally, right? Like, let's just say, like, if there's a trader out there that misses most of the moves that they're looking at, you can't always, it's much harder to always think me like that if it always happens to you, right? But that's where you and I would need to work together one on one, or hey, you send me your journal. If you're not doing coaching with me, then you could always work with me via email, send me your journals, and I could at least go over that with you on the side. But it's always good to have a second set of eyes on trades, and there's always a good perspective that we could provide that's constructive, that could help you at least, in the next trade that you take from that point, or the next one that you watch, so you could be more confident with actually reacting to it and taking it. All right, let's go back to the email machine here. Just go back to email questions. Again, we always say first come, first serve, especially via email, josh at c2trading.com. Here we go. Just really quick. You got a couple of these that come back to me. So from Paul actually saying, I'm new to the service, just soaking it all in at the minute. No specific questions at this time. A-okay. I just tend to get those emails at times from new members. So got to kind of fish through those every now and then. Uh, all right. From Andy, here we go. A couple questions from Andy. Good ones here. So two questions. Andy, I didn't get the pictures that you were looking to attach. Let me see. Nope, I got them. Pardon me. Yeah, I got the chart that you sent over. It's on the stock ALT. What I'll just do, Andy, just to show everyone else, I'll just show the book map level 4 for it. So Andy's asking a couple questions. What do you do when you identify a circuit breaker, like a halt, basically? Andy's asking more or less, what happens when a stock gets halted? If I'm in the middle of the trade, should I get out as soon as possible? If I'm not able to get out, should I avoid the stock entirely? Or, I'm sorry, if he's not in the trade yet, should he just avoid it entirely? That's the first kind of question there that he has. Uh, as a new student joining us, let's say if you're a month or two in, I would not be aggressive with hunting for trades that are already halted and to just jump in on them expecting a move up higher. I say that just generally to new students that are a part of the gold course here at CTU. Um, Now, if you're already in the trade and it got halted, hey, that could be really good, of course. You just got to make sure you have your levels mapped out. And otherwise, if it makes higher lows, continues to make higher lows, then you're in a good position. If it reopens and it just gaps up right away, like I'm sure you'll be more impulsive to sell and take the profit because you want to do the right thing and just take the money and run, right? That's what we all should be thinking more so than less, more than less. So, you know, you're going to look to get out instinctively, I feel. That's kind of just, second nature because you're up more money than you normally are. So, shoot, let's just take the money and run. But as far as like an actual example, let's say an actual example as far as seeing a stock get halted. Well, there was one halt today. I think there was just one halt today that we had. It was the ADTX. And ADTX got halted right at 9:30. So, hey, at 9:30 this morning, we're not trading, are we? We're waiting the first 3 to 5 minutes anyway, right? Well, I think this actually got halted for not a 5 minute halt, but this was a 10-minute halt, meaning that, if it's not a five, it'll be a 10. It's actually a very beginnerish rule to give, but this is really how Fausto and I calculate it. The vast majority of circuit breaker halts are 5 minutes. Like I'd probably say like 95% of them are 5 minute halts. It's not 50-50, not 60-40. It's like 95-5. So assume 5 minutes. If it's not 5 minutes, if it's literally 5 minutes and like 1 or 2 seconds goes by, then it's a 10-minute halt. So this ended up being a 10-minute halt, 9:31, 9:41, correct? Okay. So again, this popped right away, this example. So unless if you hung on to some pre-market trade, which we don't advocate students to do, right? You want to give the stock a chance to breathe and relax. You want to give yourself a chance to breathe and relax, right? You always say that here in Traders Talk. So let's just say no one's in this trade yet. It pops up right away, gets halted. What do we do? Well, man, this was up a lot percentage wise at that time. I mean, it was testing 850 by the time it reopened up. Uh, it's up 65% as we're talking. So this thing had to have been up even that much more. So you definitely want to be hesitant. You don't want to just jump in, right? I mean, just take one look at C4, that stock from earlier. It popped up earlier, it pulled back. You don't want to be on the wrong side of a shake, right? Even with this bouncing back up a small amount, there's no guarantees that that happens, especially for a crappy, like low float stock like this. So, that's where I could say at least, hey, when this reopens up from its halt, well, actually, pretty similar to 9:30 when the market opened up for this trade ADTX, we ended up actually seeing a halt that came in. This was like, what we'll call the opening halt print. We talk about this in phase 2 a little bit when I have the chance. Oops. Let's try that. Let's see, I might need to go back just a small bit here on the time and sales, just get the right timing here on the tape. There we go. All right, so when this reopened up from its halt, what happens? Well, we had a big print on the tape right at 8:29. It was 113,000 shares that came in, right? Now, it's actually yellow on time and sales, believe that, right? What's the actual condition? What is the actual technical condition for yellow? What does yellow really mean? What's the legal birth name of yellow? Like we kind of, describe it. My nickname is Josh. My full birth name is Joshua Max Levitan, right? What is the full condition for yellow? Do we know? Do we have any takers on what yellow is? Got Larry, my guy Larry here right away. I love this answer from him, and he is correct. It is not just filled it's not just filled at the ask. That's green. Yellow is a step above. It is above the ask. Now, we kind of group that with green, right? And we kind of group it with green. And we say, okay, well, green and yellow, we nickname together and say that's buying, right? Okay. Well, if that is actually supposed to be that much buying at that price, then certainly we should be seeing a pretty good move off of it very shortly after, then, right? It should look to hold above this price and pop higher. Well, it does. It holds above it on the next two bars and it goes up to 950 ish, right? That's a pretty good move so far. Let's see more then, right? Maybe it can go up to 10. Maybe it can keep pushing. All right, well, clearly you could see it doesn't. And over time, it ends up pulling back that larger red candle right here. So, right then and there, you start to say, uh-oh. Well, hey, if that's supposed to be buying, then at least that should hold above it as support. But here's the thing, it did that already. That already came and gone. That was here. The more times this nips this price as support, it's going to break it. Now, on this pullback even, that's like a red flag. That right there is like, oh. Well, let's think about it. If there's supposed to be that much buying there, well, like we've been saying, it should hold the level and run. It slices under the level over time, right? When it begins to pull back under the level and it holds under the level, right then and there is where we can then say, finally, then could say, well, maybe that isn't buying. And if that's not buying, there's only one other thing that is going to be, and that is selling. And to go a step further into that, well, hey, there's two types of selling, isn't there? There's people taking profits selling, like taking the money and running selling. And you know what? If anyone's able to short this stock, it's hard to borrow on TradeStation for me. But if you're on some like offshore crappy prop firm that like gives you the shares to trade low float stuff that you can blow up your account, this worked out at least, right? Hey, it held under this level. This would have been the responsible price to try this from. And it worked out at least, right? Support became resistance. It still shook around it slightly. There was a pop and drop from there briefly, but it made a big move from that level. It sure made a big move from that big level, didn't it? So, at the least, we're not trying to short this stuff. We're just trying to get out before this thing crashes back down, right? So, when it comes to that type of halt, Andy, going back to Andy's email, this was just one example. There's a bunch that we can go over on a weekly basis here in Traders Talk or class. But this one, the opening print, the opening halt print there, when it reopened off of that halt, well, that's the price that you traditionally want to follow. Now, I say that to everyone. As a new student, I would not suggest to be trading a stock that is reopening up off a halt, right? If you're already in one, then perfect. That could be a really good scenario. More likely to take the money and run, though, off a pop, and you'd feel good about it. But, if you see a stock getting halted like this, you don't want to just jump right in afterward. All right, one more from Andy here. What is a good exit for this successful trade? That's the one he sent the picture on, and I'll show you what he sent me here. This is the ALT trade, and this is actually, I'm sorry, I can't show the book map. This is from the 7th. This is from last week, I believe. So ALT, Andy sent me the chart. I'll basically show you it from TradeStation. He just sent me his Thinkorswim chart, I believe. So from the 7th at the market open, basically. Andy, I keep forgetting you and your brother are an hour actually ahead of me, not an hour behind me there. So I was looking at 10:30 market open. I was like, what the? No, no. So yeah, an hour ahead of us there. Let's see. That's the 8th, the 7th. Bingo. All right, this is the chart that Andy sent me here, basically asking like, what is a successful entry, or I'm sorry, what is a good exit for this successful trade? Um, So Andy says that he exited on the first pullback of 2 bars. So that I'm not too sure of as far as the exact price and time. So that's where we do encourage, at least folks, if you do have a trade just to send me, please just send me like the journal, like the Excel spreadsheet, at least if you have it from class. Even if you don't have that, just send me like the time and price that you got filled at, because then I can like really correlate pretty quickly with this, chart. So one thing I could say, well, actually, one thing I could ask, how about this? Let me ask all of our students here in our chat board, including Andy, perhaps if he's here. What time are we normally expecting reversals? Cyber clock. You look at your wristwatch here, you'll cyber clock, and what time are we expecting reversals here? Around 10:30. All right, this thing popped up pretty nice. It really pushed at this point prior to 10 o'clock and right at 10 o'clock. Even on this dip, it still held support, right? A little higher low, moved up again. All right, well, the closer we get to 10:30, I am naturally thinking that eventually this will look to fade off or not provide as much of an opportunity to make money. So as long as it keeps making higher lows, then that's one thing. But it seems like just right on the freaking nose at 10:30. I mean, it doesn't get better of an example, but I want to be transparent and tell you, at least, as we always say here, you can't trust 10:30 exactly on the nose for every trade on every day of every week of every month. It's not that flawless, right? So let's say you're in the position already and it's moving up. You're in from, let's just say, even 740, and it's popping and you're up like 50, 60 cents. Naturally, if you're not up that much on a normal basis, on a per trade basis, and you're up 50, 60 cents here, I'd be more inclined to get out. Now, again, if it's still making higher lows and you're seeing support clearly getting built and not breaking, then you could still play that game, right? You could still play the higher low game and keep seeing it go. But over time, you just want to be more mindful of the closer we get to 10:30, then does it become worth it? The majority of the time, like the vast majority of the time, the answer is no. So it's just that this one was too perfect to where like it hit 10:30 basically on the gun, like right there, then tanked. So that's like really what I can kind of, shed light on there, Andy, for that one trade. I don't have the book map though, so I'm sure that there's a lot more to it there. Let's see actually if I can try and go through one thing here, maybe. So that was the 7th there. Let's see, the high from the previous day was 762. I don't normally just use that as a level, but just hey, if you had that plotted and it smashes under there, then obviously that's a bad sign. It was already dropping off pretty sharply prior to even it hitting that price. So yeah, I mean, like you don't really, Bookmap's going to give you a better story, but alongside that, the reversal time roughly around 10:15, 10:30 is what you want to kind of look at there. Oh, got an email from my friend here, Lee. And Lee, yes, we will absolutely chat coming up here. I'll get our next coaching session scheduled. Actually, look to do that coming up with you in a few minutes here. But Lee had a quick question on JTAI yesterday at about 9:45. Just discussing how to handle pullbacks when you're in a trade. Cool. So let's go to that one right now. So, I gotta go back on my chart, reset it. That we did not trade. We did not trade that mess. But yesterday we did trade JTAI and it popped up pretty nicely. This was what Lee was talking about here. And he's asking, like, how do you handle pullbacks? So let's see. Do I have this on my heat map here? I hope I do, but I don't think I do. Might need to load this up here pretty quickly. We're going to finish up Traders Talk in a few moments here, folks. Again, just going to say this early on social media. Just if you wanted to join us inside our live trading room, scan that QR code on the top left. If you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, at least, be a friend, tell a friend, spread the good word at Cyber Trading U on YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, etc. But join our live trading room, catch up with us all throughout the day. Fausto himself as well. Just scan that QR code on the top left of the screen. Now, with that though, as I filibustered there, is Bookmap loaded for me. There we go. Here is JTAI, and this is from. Let's see. This is from yesterday, like early afternoon. I might need to go back even a little bit more here, Lee. 1 second. Oh man, my left eye is killing me. Oh man. All right. Definitely take a break from the computer screen later today. I think I have some coaching calls coming up on top. All right. Yeah, Lee, unfortunately, let's see. Is it going to give me what I want? It's not letting me load up prior to 12 o'clock Eastern time here. You can see it popped up again and then dropped into the close. But Lee was looking for before that. It popped up at the open yesterday and then pulled back and then had the bounce up. So I would have loved to have shown that, Lee, on the book map. I for some reason, don't have that data there. Here's one thing that we could focus on. How do you deal with pullbacks? Well, let's talk about reversal time again. This was popping up going into 10:30. So by 10:30, this was already shaking from here. It made a higher high again, and it made one more, I reckon. But you don't want to hold on to this. You don't want to hold on to this like mess of like a range here, unless if you're in from a really low price. You don't need to hold on to this, and you don't want to. But otherwise, let's kind of talk about maybe this pullback. That could be a pullback where maybe we could focus on a higher low or maybe the run up later throughout the morning, right? It does drop right at 10:30 here, it seems. But, is there a level maybe that we could utilize? Well, I'm going to shoot from the hip here. I don't have Bookmap open, but you know what? If we actually go back to the chart here, pre-market, looks like generally 250, pretty strong resistance anyway. There is a chart level definitely right here at 222. That seems pretty good to me. Now, it does seem like that level is pretty choppy, though, afterwards. I just want to mention that. So I only got that from the chart. I don't have Bookmap to confirm volume there. So it seems like that was pretty choppy. But what wasn't choppy was the 250 level. This broke over 250, and that resistance did get flipped cleanly, at least into support. That's like easy on the eyes there, perhaps. But in terms of how do you handle that pullback, well, hey, if you're in from 280 at this point, then there's no handling. You just take the loss. You don't want to hold on to a 30-cent drawback for such a cheap stock. That is a huge percentage of a loss that you should not really be taking. If you're trading options, I know some traders will look to, hang on to a trade for like 25% loss or whatever it may be. That's even a little too much there. But options is more leveraged, and I understand the reason for that. With trading a simple equity, a stock, there's no need to do that. Especially on this trade. Hey, if you tried doing that when it was at 310, 320, look at the drawback that you're dealing with here. There's no need to rip your hair out. Is it a guarantee it goes back up again? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Look at ADTX here, right? You think this is likely to go back up later? No, I will say if this goes back up later, count me as heavily surprised. That would be jaw dropping. I would not be expecting that, right? Because that does not happen more often than it doesn't. So, with that said, stock like the one that we just had before, the JTAI. Look at where it's at today. Look at where it'll be at tomorrow, perhaps, and so forth. But With that said, the first little drop back that you had, 250, that did become support. If you weren't in the trade already, then that could have been used as a really good support level to enter off of. All right, folks. So we are going to finish up, though, officially for Traders Talk here for this week. If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me over a quick email. Josh@ctutrading.com is my email address. Again, please, any trades that you want me to go over, you got to send me your journal. I might start to kind of say, won't go over the trade unless if I have that Excel spreadsheet, right? Or at least to have the clean times and prices in which you took the trade. I want to make sure that you are journaling that information because it's for your own benefit as a trader. All right. So, folks, again, let me know if you have any other questions. Josh@ctutrading.com. We'll be back later on this afternoon at 2:30 for the afternoon meeting. Talk to you all then.